Hey, what's up, everybody? And welcome back to the Sanctuary. I'm your host, Professor C, and we're going to continue our trip down the A&P road. Specifically, I'm going to do some more bone stuff, talking about growth hormones and ossification, also known as osteogenesis. So, let's take a peek. All right, let's check out ossification. That is the concept of osteogenesis. Again, genesis meaning the beginning of something. So bone growth, basically, bone formation and bone growth, begins early in development. As early as the second month of development in utero, bones begin to form. However, the bones that you get when you're small or even as a young adult, they're not the same bones you have forever. So the skeleton is always reshaping itself, remodeling itself, and repairing itself if necessary, and this happens over the course of your entire life. In fact, the skeleton you have now is not the same skeleton you had 10 years ago. A lot of us think that the skeleton is as it is and will always be. But you are in control of how strong your skeleton becomes because you get a new one about every 10 years through recycling of the bone material. So there's two major types of ossification or osteogenesis. Endochondral ossification, again, meaning something to do within the cartilage, right? Chondro, that root for cartilage. So endochondral ossification replaces hyaline cartilage that was forming the embryonic skeleton. So if you can remember way back to our tissues lectures, one of the big places to find a type of cartilage called hyaline cartilage was that it forms the embryonic skeleton. So think about bone being laid down on top of this foundation of cartilage. So the note that you see in most of the standardized type tests are it forms most of the bones in the skeleton. So endochondral ossification is the most common type. The rest of the body, or I should say the rest of the bones in the body, are formed dermally or intramembranously through intramembranous ossification. So this forms the flat bones and those bones that were not formed through endochondral ossification. So what happens here is you have some membrane in the dermis, right, a fibrous membrane, and it forms the flat bones as it develops. So two types of ossification, endochondral having to do with cartilage being a framework and being replaced by bone. That's how most bones are formed. The rest, especially the flat bones, are formed intramembranously or dermally. All right, there are, of course, some hormones that allow us to regulate bone growth. Growth hormone would be the one that should come to mind almost immediately, and it does stimulate activity at that epiphyseal plate or growth plate as you're growing and allows the bones to get longer and longer and longer. Therefore, you as a human being would become taller and taller and taller. Makes sense. Now, it also probably makes sense that upon puberty, you get a boost of testosterones or estrogens, and they will be responsible for not only making a growth spurt or spurts that you may have a rapid period of growth, but they're also responsible for ending growth. In fact, if you have too much of these sex hormones too quickly, it could cause the epiphyseal plate to seal and become the epiphyseal line early. And at that point, you won't be as tall as you might think you would be. Okay, so remember, deposition is a word that refers to putting money in the bank, like deposit. So this is where we need to add bone, right? And you would think that would happen where the bone is injured, or perhaps, you start working out a different way, and you're using muscles in a different way that are pulling on bones, and that bone needs to be strengthened. So you would deposit some bone material there where it needs to become stronger. So deposition is putting material into the bone to either repair it or make it stronger. A hormone that you hear talk about is called calcitonin, and it is secreted by the thyroid gland, right? So it's a thyroid hormone called calcitonin. It plays some roles in stimulating osteoblasts. Again, that would an osteoblast tells us we're going to be making bone matrix, right? So calcitonin should help us deposit money in the bank. It also inhibits the clasts, which we know we're trying to tear it apart. So 2 ways we can remember that, but calcitonin is going to be our depositing hormone here. Okay, you can think of it like this. Let's say blood calcium is going up. So oftentimes you write calcium as Ca++ or Ca2+ or something like that. Let's say what's happening now, calcium in the blood is too high. Well, what do? Well, we tell the thyroid gland, which kind of looks like this up in the neck. We tell the thyroid gland to secrete calcitonin. Right? Now, calcitonin being a hormone will travel through the blood system. So I'll draw a little blood tube here. As hormones do, they travel through the blood. And at some point, we'll get to the bone, right? I'll draw that cartoon bone again. So here comes the calcitonin. And it's going to tell the bone, do deposition, right? The point is there's too much calcium floating around the blood, so we need to secrete a hormone to get to the bone and help deposit bone, right? To help deposit it. Now this, of course, will, at the end of the day, cause calcium blood levels to drop back to normal. The opposite is also true. There's another hormone that helps you resorb. Remember, the verb is to resorb, but we say the noun is resorption. If blood calcium levels are too low and we need to increase it. So to do this, we have a different hormone known as PTH, or parathyroid hormone. It stimulates the clasts. It stimulates the breakdown of bone material so we can put it back into the blood to get it where the body needs that calcium or phosphates or whatever it's trying to tear down. Okay, so in this case, we're going to have blood calcium levels will be falling. There's my Ca2+. And this is going to tell the parathyroid glands. Now, if you turn the thyroid around, it kind of looks like this from the back of the neck. There's the back of the neck right there. And it doesn't connect itself in the back. But what you will see in the back are little kind of jelly beans embedded in the thyroid tissue. Those are the parathyroid glands right there, these little guys embedded in the thyroid. And what happens is, if blood calciums get too low, then the parathyroid glands will secrete PTH, or parathyroid hormone. And being a hormone, as hormones do, they travel through the blood. So I can put a blood stream here again. PTH will travel through the blood. Its ultimate target is, again, to get to the bone. So we can draw a little cartoon bone again. There it is. So PTH will come over. And it will say, hey, blood calcium is low. We need some more calcium. And it will tell osteoclasts to chew up the matrix, right? So they should start chewing up matrix. And that will take calcium and put it back in the blood to be delivered to where it needs to go. Therefore, blood calcium levels will rise to a normal level. All right, hope you enjoyed that talk on growth and osteogenesis. Thanks for watching it. Check out some of the other bone videos. There will be a lot of them coming. And I'll see you for the next one. Bye-bye.